Here's what a competent country looks like. And by that, I don't mean the United States of America. I'm talking about China. The Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi on the Iran war.
Phoenix TV. The US and Israel have again launched military strikes on Iran, and the conflict is spreading to the entire Middle East region. What is China's view on the Iran situation, and what solution does China propose?
This is an issue that everyone is concerned about. It is also the focal point in the current international situation. China's attitude is objective and impartial. We have stated our principled position on multiple occasions, which can be summarized into one key message, that is, to bring about ceasefire and end hostilities. Ancient Chinese wisdom warns that weapons are ominous tools and should not be used without discretion. Seeing the Middle East engulfed in flames, I want to say that this is a war that should not have happened. The history of the Middle East tells the world time and again that force provides no solution. An armed conflict will only increase hatred and breed new crises.
China can say this all day, every day, but let's be real, okay? When push comes to shove, sometimes you got to take military action. And I don't mean like on the American side. I mean like the Iranians are showing that reality. Because America is hell-bent on death and destruction around the globe. They're not going to stop. Like, it is what it is. You have to provide a counterbalance. Bro, you look 2 years younger today? Really? Is it because I just changed my glasses?
Once again, China calls for an immediate stop to military operations to avoid the spiraling escalation of the situation and prevent the conflict from spilling over and spreading. China is of the view that to find the right and proper solution to the issues relating to Iran and the Middle East, the following fundamental principles must be observed. First, respecting state sovereignty. Sovereignty is the cornerstone of the current international order. We believe that the sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity of Iran and all countries in the Gulf region should be respected and must not be violated.
Why is China saying impartial actor, etc., when they're supposed to be Iran's ally? Because they're pussies.
Second, rejecting the abuse of force. Might does not make right. The law of the jungle must not return and rule the world. Willful use of force does not prove one's strength. Civilians
You said law except Taiwan? The f do you mean? They don't do shit to Taiwan either. What are you talking about? They're always trade maxing. That's it. They have said more than AOC liberal. That's so funny.
innocent and should not be victimized. Third, non-interference in internal affairs. The people in the Middle East are the true master of the region. Middle Eastern affairs should be determined by regional countries independently. Plotting color revolution or seeking regime change will find no popular support. Fourth, promoting political settlement of hotspot issues. China always believes that peace is the most precious. All sides should return to the negotiating table as quickly as possible, resolve differences through equal dialogue, and make efforts for realizing common security. Fifth, major countries should play a constructive role and use their strength in goodwill.
Dude, this is the funniest chatter. Can you turn this AI? Can you turn off this AI slop narration? No. First of all, it's not even AI. It's a real human. Secondly, even if it was AI, I don't speak Chinese. And neither does anybody else here. You hit the double where you, one, falsely claimed something was AI, and then two, got mad at like one of the only instances where like AI is kind of valid.
Another ancient Chinese adage reads, "When benevolence and justice are not practiced, the position of strength shifts." Major countries should act in the spirit of justice and righteousness and contribute more positive energy to peace and development of the Middle East. As a sincere friend and strategic partner, China stands ready to work with Middle Eastern countries to implement the Global Security Initiative and restore order to the Middle East.
The reason why China is saying they're an impartial actor is because they also obviously play a major trade role with Saudi Arabia and all the Gulf countries that are getting bombed right now. Even though it's the American bases that are getting bombed, they can't just be like, we love Iran. We're with you, Iran, all the way, because they're trade maxers. That's why they're not, leaning into it aggressively. I'm sure they're probably still helping Iran, but like they're obviously offering political cover to Iran, which is necessary, and it's totally valid. I will say that 100%. Iran, in this circumstance, is the harmed party. Israel and America are the party doing the wrong, doing the illegal act of waging war against a country for no reason, a decapitation strike on the leadership. All of that stuff is completely illegal. And it doesn't really matter that the rest of the world disagrees with it. Obviously, the rest of the world doesn't mean anything. When America wants to do something, they do it. And it turns out increasingly other regional powers also have that level of influence and also that level of like rule breaking as well. We saw that with Russia and Ukraine, and no one can really stop it. But China still plays this role of diplomacy and stability in the global stage because they think like they will be the true safeguard of the United Nations in the future. I think that's silly, but I'm sure they know better than I do.
Restore tranquility to the people and restore peace to the world. Thank you.
The Taiwan question and the cross-strait situation have become more heated, and the PLA's drills are getting closer to the island. What do you make of the risk of conflict breaking out in the region? And does China have a timetable and roadmap for reunification?
Taiwan has been an integral part of China since ancient times. It never was, is not, and never will be a country. Its return to China is a victorious outcome of the Chinese people's war of resistance against Japanese aggression and the Second World War. Its status has been definitively fixed by a series of international legal instruments, including the Cairo Declaration, the Potsdam Proclamation, Japan's Instrument of Surrender, and the Resolution 2758 of the UN General Assembly.
It's so funny. Dude, I'm sorry. There's nothing funnier to me than like Iran and China and Russia and all of these other like quote unquote foreign adversaries constantly leaning into legalese. And I'm not saying that as like, oh, these guys don't actually operate within the confines at all. I'm not doing that like Western chauvinistic bullshit. They do actually try to maintain some semblance of like rule-based order. Obviously, they violate it. I mean, specifically, Russia has violated it by invading Ukraine. But even within that violation, they try to like operate within the confines, even though there are obviously war crimes that take place like Bucha and But that's the reason why there's a difference between the way that like Russia has waged war in Ukraine or even like population transfers, things like that, right? Russia has done a lot of war crimes. Russia has violated a lot of like rules of war. But there's still a very significant difference between the way that Russia is waging war in Ukraine, still unjustifiable, still bloody, still unacceptable, versus what Israel has done in Gaza. And that's the point that I'm making, which is these guys literally still think that like international law matters at all. They are operating as though we are not in a totally new world that is basically the same as the old world, but they've also dropped any interest or investment in abiding by the international rule-based order. Wow, nice seeing you see their hypocrisy. Wait, what do you mean? Who is their hypocrisy? If you're an American, you have no leg to stand on to call out any of these countries. Let's be real. When has America abided by international rules? Like, what are you talking about? We wrote the rules and we violate those rules over and over again. It's ridiculous. I'm saying it's so stupid that these guys will still be like, excuse me, here are the many different reasons why, according to international law and previous analysis, that, Taiwan actually is a part of China. They don't care. They don't give a shit at all. Like, no one cares about the paperwork, man. Like, Americans don't care about the paperwork. The UN is a toothless institution. I'm sorry. There is no real paperwork. Now, do I prefer this? I do. even if it's just purely symbolic, I prefer that they're still trying to do this thing where they're like, well, international law dictates that Taiwan is a part of China. Most of the major powers in the world understand that, Taiwan is a part of China, including the United States of America, all this stuff. But like, I hope they're well aware that no one else on the other side gives a shit, right? Like, I'll say this sincerely. While there isn't any serious appetite in Taiwan as it stands for unification, right? They want status quo. That's what they want. Overwhelmingly, they are in favor of status quo. But let's say in a hypothetical scenario where Taiwan decided that they wanted to unify with China democratically, you think America would let Taiwan go? I'm asking sincerely, if every single Taiwanese was like, oh, we're Chinese, I want to be a part of China, I already work in China, my family works in China, my family lives in mainland China, I want to be a part of China, you think the United States of America would allow that to happen? No, don't be delusional, man. It's just not, that would never happen in a million years, because America's goals in Taiwan is not the liberation of the Taiwanese people. This is the same delusional nonsense that people constantly present to me. Is delusional. Taiwan is a military base 100 miles off the coastline of mainland China. That's all it's worth. And also they make chips. But even before the chips, Taiwan was a military base, a thorn in China's side. I don't know why there are still people who have this like idiotic notion that America cares about human rights anywhere. Like, what the how many countries do we have to bomb for Americans to finally come to that conclusion that, like, no, we don't give a about people in Taiwan. We don't give a about the people in Iran. We don't care. We've never cared. Some of you are delusional enough to believe it. But with the new vulgar imperialism meta that Donald Trump has demonstrated, people are basically coming to that conclusion regardless. Yeah, I don't give a who we kill. Who gives a shit, right? That's basically the way that a lot of Americans, like a lot of hogs, are approaching the subject matter. So you got to figure out real quick which side you're on. Are you on I'm going to delude myself into thinking that there's some sort of like liberation at the end of this, at the end of American interference in the affairs of other countries? Or are you actually going to wake up to that reality and say, I oppose American imperialism. I oppose Western imperialism. The problem with this take is that there's an implied notion of international law ever having existed or being normative. The truth is the norm has been Holocaust after Holocaust after Holocaust from the moment the U.S. attained hegemony in 1945. The UN has been since a genesis tool to wash the same imperialist violence of Britain after colonial power slipped. I don't disagree with you. That's why I said America sets the standard after World War II and has been utilizing the UN as a tool, utilizing international law as a tool to do their bidding and whitewashing their obvious savagery while simultaneously really bringing up the casus belli to engage in interference overseas by pointing to international law when our adversaries are doing it, or nations in the periphery are doing it. Yes, that is the truth, and it's something that I acknowledge all the time. However, my assessment is I'd rather have an international governing body that doesn't just believe in the theory of conflict avoidance, but actually does have some power to stop conflict from taking place. That's the whole point of multipolarity. That's what's supposed to happen. It hasn't happened. It didn't even happen in the Cold War, but at least it was, like, I would say, less chaotic, and maybe it gave countries in the global South more room to breathe and have successful liberation movements, because there was another pole that armed them when they were doing anti-colonial, anti-imperialist actions. Many of these countries would be worse off if the USSR had not existed. Cuba is a great example of a country that would absolutely look like Haiti right now. Cuba would be worse off if the USSR didn't exist. Look no further than two different countries that have, different modes of development, but one is much more diverse than the other. But look at India and China. Look at Indian development versus Chinese development. The major, albeit this is reductive analysis, but there's a major difference between Chinese development and Indian development. Look at where India is at now. Look at where China's at now. How do you think that happened? Why do you think that happened? It was Malcolm X who said something really interesting, where he was like, this is far before this development ever even took place, but Malcolm X was asked about Nehru versus Mao. Here, I'm going to read this to you. And I don't want anybody to get offended or get mad at me for this is Malcolm X's own opinion, not mine. Okay. But I think it helps you identify something here. Malcolm X, I think that Nehru probably was a good man, although I didn't go for it. I don't go for anybody who's passive. I don't go for anybody who advocates pacifism or peaceful suffering in any form whatsoever. I don't go for it. What about Jesus Christ? Malcolm X does not even respond to that question. Continues, I go for Mao much more than Nehru because I think that Nehru brought his country up in a beggar's role. Their roles, the role of India and its reliance upon the West during the years since it got its supposed independence, has it today just as helpless and dependent as it was when it first got its independence. Whereas in China, the Chinese fought for their independence. They became militant right from the outstart. And today even though they aren't loved, they are respected. Though the West doesn't love them, the West respects them. Now, the West doesn't respect India, but it loves India. I see your distinction. Can you see my distinction? I do indeed. Malcolm X says, I admire the stand of China and the stand of Mao Zedong, but I can't admire with respect the stand of Nehru in India. I just can't do it. Hold up, y'all are unironically communist? Applies here. Bro, that's the same one. Yeah, the U.S. won't give India the same kind of economic advantages it gave China, which allowed that country to emerge as a major competitor, Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau said. This is also bullshit. They make it seem like America made China. Like, that's also Western chauvinism of a different order. But do you see? I mean, India is far more diverse, obviously. And there have been other setbacks. India's starting point is different. The caste structure. Like, there's a lot of cultural forces and reactionary forces at play. Low-key, maybe in spite of the excesses, the Cultural Revolution might have actually played a major role in purging some of the rightist elements within China. Who knows, right? I can't make that assessment. I don't know. I can just look at the results, right? But it does feel to me like a communist India would probably fare better than what India looks like now. Now, the reason why I say that is because there is a communist India. It's called Kerala, right? And they are literally the best region in India. They are doing better than everybody else. That's gotta mean something, right? Because India, in spite of the fact that it's, it has like this Western liberal democracy that is that keeps voting for this fascist Modi. India does have robust and very large communist movements, not just in Kerala either. But my point is, especially for developing nations, like, highly recommend communism. Can't recommend it enough. That's all I'm going to say. Like, I can't recommend it for Americans because we just don't have that base. Like, we don't have material conditions that resemble places where successful communist movements have launched. Americans are too fat and too comfortable in the imperial core to ever entertain such things. But if you're India, I mean, it's right there, man. It's right there for the seizing.
Any attempt to create two Chinas or one China, one Taiwan is doomed to fail. The DPP authorities' obstinate pursuit of their separatist agenda is the root cause. And
a communist India wouldn't be worth the Great Famine and Cultural Revolution and not having democracy? Brother, what do you mean? We're talking about India. This is like during the time frame where communism was being developed, India was already going through tremendous famine anyway. India also still experiences famine from time to time. What are we talking about? What? That's crazy to say. India from the beginning has been very socialist. Leaders would compete on who's more socialist. We had a very radical land redistribution reform. No, I know. I'm saying, that's why I was saying, like, it should have went all the way. There weren't famines before communism. Buddy, go to history class. India, China, and Russia never experienced famine historically before communism. That's funny. I know you're being sarcastic.
Undermining peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait. It has been proven time.
The craziest part about it is that, like, famine under imperialism unironically was made worse by colonial powers, as opposed to, like, famine under communism, you can still attribute to like state mismanagement, where they f***ed up big time. And, you know, a lot of people die as a consequence of like this great collectivization initiative. And it's horrifying, but it's still different than direct famine as a consequence of British rule, right? In Ireland, or the Bengal famine, right? Like there are instances where like famine is directly brought about by a colonial entity that is just destroying the population because they want the supply for themselves.
There is no doubt that China and the US have a significant impact on the world, but we should not forget there are more than 190 countries on our planet. World history has always been written by many countries together, and the future of humanity will be forged through the collective efforts of all nations. Diversity is the inherent nature of human society. And multipolarity is what the international landscape should look like. Looking back in history, great power rivalry and bloc confrontation have invariably inflicted disaster and pain on humanity. Therefore, China will never take the beaten path of seeking hegemony as its strength grows, nor do we subscribe to the logic that the world can be run by major countries. China has inscribed in its constitution that it follows an independent foreign policy and is committed to pursuing a path of peaceful development. Chinese leaders have often declared to the world that no matter how the international situation evolves and how strong China becomes, it will never seek hegemony or expansion.
Boo. People don't believe that when they say this, but they just don't do it. They don't do it when they should. They don't do it when they could. I've said this over and over again. Like, even from their own self-preservation, there are so many instances where they could just engage in like militancy, engage in actions that offer them a much better position in the global stage. And they just don't do it. They just sit there and they expect Western nations to come to that conclusion on their own that like China actually has no, imperialist ambitions. China doesn't want to destabilize the world. China wants stability. China wants trade maxing. And Westerners never will believe them.
The national landscape should evolve. China's proposal is to build an equal and orderly multipolar.
I mean, they're a massive trade partner to Israel still. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
World. Equal means every nation, regardless of size or strength, is an equal member of the international community and can find its place and play its role in a multipolar world. Orderly means all countries should uphold the widely recognized international rules, namely the purposes and principles of the UN Charter and the basic norms of international relations.